All right, guys, step 10, here we are. This is the final step of the step-by-step wholesaling process. This is crushingrei.com. This is going to be a shorter video. Just wanted to go over a couple of things here regarding assigning the contract and closing with title. If you check out the post on my website, I did copy and paste the entire assignment agreement. It's just a one-page document, so it's pretty straightforward. So you can check that out. Just make sure you consult with your local attorney first before using any contracts that we share. Discussing expectations with your buyer. This is pretty important. A lot of this stuff is going to sound pretty obvious, but price, make sure that you and your buyer are on the same page in terms of what price you decided on. Earnest money deposit. We usually ask for a $3,000 non-refundable earnest money deposit due within 72 hours after the agreement is signed. Close date, you're going to want to make sure that you communicate the close date with your end buyer. You've probably negotiated a close date with your seller, whether it's 2 weeks out or 30 days out. Just make sure that your buyer knows so he can get his funds lined up. Payment terms, typically wholesale deals are cash deals, or a lot of times our buyers will use hard money or private money loans, which is essentially the same thing as cash. But again, you just want to make sure they understand what the close date is so they can get their lender on board and connected with the title company and make sure those funds are available. We have done wholesale deals with conventional financing and traditional financing methods with banks. It is a little more complicated, and especially for your first couple deals, I recommend you don't go that route. However, I will do a video on that. It's called Novation, and it's an excellent strategy, and it's a way you can do deals and make money on higher end retail deals. Inspections, because the EMD is non-refundable, we don't do any inspection contingencies. So if they want to get an inspection, that's fine. But again, we're not going to refund the EMD if they decide to back out after an inspection. So essentially that initial walkthrough is their chance to put the deal under contract. Closing costs. Typically, we negotiate with our sellers that we're going to pay the seller's standard closing costs, and that includes title insurance, transfer tax, and closing fees. So just make sure your buyer knows what they're responsible for. You know, if it's a really good deal and you're making a big assignment fee, sometimes I will just cover those costs myself if my buyer isn't, typically used to buying from wholesalers and doesn't expect to pay those costs. So everything's negotiable at the end of the day, but just make sure that those are some of the details that are discussed up front. LLC or personal name, I always like to just ask, hey, do you have an LLC? Do you have a business entity you want to put this in versus your name? So that way you can put that on the contract. Title company. So hopefully you didn't wait till the last minute to decide on a title company. This is something that you should have done up front. So there are lots of title companies out there to choose from. Almost all of them will do wholesale deals. The biggest difference between, I would call a wholesale friendly title company and a non-wholesale friendly title company is the non-wholesale friendly will require the seller to sign a document that discloses your assignment fee. So how much money you're making on the deal. And now I would say it's about 50-50. There's a lot of title companies that do not require that document. So just make sure you ask them up front ahead of time if that's a requirement or not. Not a huge deal especially if the seller knows that you're wholesaling it or assigning the contract to somebody else and making some money. A lot of times my buyers or my sellers, they don't care, but there might be some scenarios where they would care, especially if you're making, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in an assignment fee. So just keep that in mind. The title company that we use to close our deals, they do not require that document signed by the seller. A couple other things that you want to touch on. The title company will really kind of hold your hand during the process, especially if this is new to you. They're going to send you the title commitment. There might be some documents you have to send off to the seller. A mortgage payoff authorization is pretty common. If they have an existing mortgage, they're going to need to make sure that lien is paid off. Delayed possession is something I'd want to touch on quickly. Sometimes the seller will last minute say, oh, by the way, I need a few extra days to move out. Most of the time buyers are okay with that, but I would just write a little paragraph protecting your buyer if they end up staying longer than that week period, that there will be a penalty. And we usually like to hold back $5,000 of the proceeds in an escrow account. That way there is some protection there for your buyer. So I did put that paragraph in the post on my site, so go ahead and check that out. And again, there might be some other documents. If it was in probate court, you might need a death certificate or letters of authority. If it's in a trust, you might need a certificate of trust. Again, don't stress too much about that kind of thing. The title company is going to tell you what documents you might need. And so that should be pretty straightforward. Schedule closing with both buyer and seller. Make sure you send them their settlement statements at least a few days before closing so they can review the numbers. And then closing day, get your check. Hopefully you use those funds to spend some more money on marketing. Hopefully you have another deal in your pipeline and you're getting ready to close another one here soon. So that's really the name of the game. If you want to turn this into a business, you have to reinvest your earnings, and you got to spend money on marketing. Paid marketing is really where it's at if you want to ramp up the deal flow. So I hope that this step-by-step series here was helpful. I do have an ebook on Amazon. It is the step-by-step guide to wholesaling. It's available on Amazon. I will put a link in the bio. If you like this content, if it's valuable, please subscribe. I also have a newsletter on my website. Probably have 2 to 3 new posts related to wholesaling a week. I like to teach wholesaling. It's a lot of this, all the content is free. The ebook is $10. I'm not trying to make a fortune on education here, but I really appreciate the followers, the likes, the subscribes. That helps my business. And again, thank you. Hopefully everyone had a good Christmas and a happy New Year and a big 2023. So cheers and thanks for watching.